Good morning. Glad to have you here for the June 13th press conference meeting. We certainly appreciate you being here today. Got a couple of things we want to go over from last week, a couple of things heading in the future, and then certainly here to answer your questions. Had a great week last week. We had the opportunity to swear in our new class of fire cadets. We brought 6 new cadets in, and we're certainly, talked with Chief Craner. All of these excelled in nearly every facet coming through things, so I think it just shows the quality of individuals that we are attracting. Again, we just transferred over to an ISO 1 rated fire service. There are less than there's only a few communities that achieve that status. Very like 3 or 4% of the that are there. So it's a significant achievement for us, and it certainly shows the quality of individuals that we have in the fire service. And again, it was great to bring in 6 new cadets and continue to see new people coming into our fire service. Had a good town hall meeting with Councilman Wiggins in District 7, so we had a good meeting related to that, and had some things that we addressed over in the Tanyards over on the west side of town. There were some good things that talked about where do we look at for walkability issues. There were a couple of things that came up about traffic as we continue to try to deal with some of the things related to traffic and a variety of other things that we're working through. So again, those are all part of the stuff we're working on, but it was really good to see some of the different initiatives that have been taking place over in Councilman Wiggins' district, and it was good to spend the time with some of those residents. Lastly, great fiesta season. We certainly enjoyed it. It was great. Had a good time with everything that happened this weekend and last weekend. It was fun for us personally. My daughter was the queen, so we had a lot of fun with it. The coronation was great Friday night, and it was, again, another great weekend, a good way to celebrate the history of our community and certainly do it. And Fiesta does a great job in what they do. We are welcoming back today the New York Yacht Club. The American Magic is coming back to the Port of Pensacola for training and marketing the team's 3rd winter training on the Gulf Coast. Patriot, which is the team's AC-75 racing yacht, arrived in Pensacola this weekend after making the journey from New Zealand. So it came in this weekend. American Magic will spend the summer building out the team's base in advance of winter training, and the team will spend all winter in Pensacola training before reallocating to Barcelona for the final push for this 37th America's Cup. So we certainly are glad to have American Magic back here. The City of Pensacola is also going to be doing several things. We've been a sponsor for several of the things dealing with Juneteenth. The City of Pensacola is highlighting a variety of events scheduled to celebrate Juneteenth, the oldest nationally celebrated commemoration of ending slavery in the United States. In addition to several city-sponsored events, many local businesses, organizations are hosting Juneteenth events to commemorate the holiday. There are too many to name, but you can visit cityofpensacola.com or the city's Facebook page. And again, we certainly will be joining in the celebration this weekend. The Florida-Alabama Transportation Priorities Public Survey is now open. The Alabama-Florida TPO is seeking your input on transportation priorities for Escambia and Santa Rosa counties in Florida and Orange Beach and Lillian in Alabama. To give your input, take their project priority survey at ecrc.org at FLAL Priorities Survey. The survey period is open through the end of July. So July 31st, 22. Until this time, you can go ahead and make your voice known, and I'm sure they would love to hear you. It would be important as a part of the presentation. In July, we will be doing another town hall meeting with Councilwoman Breyer for District 1. We will have one on July 14th at 6:30 p.m. On Thursday, July 14th at the Vickery Resource Center located at 2130 Summit Boulevard in Pensacola. We encourage everyone to attend to provide their input, certainly for the District 1 area and the area on the north side of Pensacola. So we look forward to doing that with Councilwoman Breyer. Council meetings this week, obviously we'll have a gender review. Conference will be today at 3:30 in this Hagler Mason. The CRA will be immediately following. And then Thursday we'll have a city council meeting at 5:30 in the city council chambers. Then finally, not this Saturday on the 18th, but the next Saturday on the 25th, we'll have the next mayor's cleanup. The next mayor's neighborhood cleanup will be Saturday the 25th in Sanders Beach, Bayou Grove, and West Garden District neighborhoods. Please see the cleanup map for details. The event allows City of Pensacola sanitation customers in the cleanup area to leave items at the curb for pickup free of charge, and learn more. Check to see your cleanup area at cityofpensacola.com. So we will be doing that. A couple of things that I just wanted to add that were things I know that were prevalent to many of you. I know apparently this morning I see Chief Craner here. There was some kind of a reaction at the Pensacola Village Apartments. Thank goodness there was no fire or anything else. There were some windows blown out. We don't know what was the issue, if it was apparently a roach bomb related to a pilot light. But again, somehow or another, something that went off and caused that. They've been there this morning. There were no injuries, no damage other than the things that were disrupted by the windows being blown out. But other than that, no injuries or anything else. So we certainly were happy about that, and Pensacola Fire Department continues to do that. I didn't see you here earlier, but I did talk about our cadets, and I know very proud of them and the work they're doing. Also mentioned the ISO 1. There's some things that I know many of you have been asking about since last week. I know seeing David here, I know John, you had questions about the Veterans Park and the challenge that we had with a portalette coming out there. So that was related to some construction that had to be placed out there. I think there was a lot of confusion. Some people began making a number of stuff. Again, I don't know why, but I certainly understand. I guess the portalette people saw a space that seemed like a level space to put a portable bathroom. They put it there. We worked with them to get it. It was actually, we removed it, and then the construction company was mad and said, "Will you make us do this as part of our permit?" So we had to put it back out there. But we did make sure it was going to be the location was going to be on Veterans Park and in that area. So as a part of it, they've got to make sure that they've got to be there they've got to have something there while they're doing the repair work to the monuments. So again, that's what that was. I know there was a lot of buzz going on about that last week. Also, scooters. We're dealing with some things that we're going to look to bring forward. Obviously, this week, a number of issues dealing with the scooters. I'll be the first one to say we've had challenges, but I think we are working through them. This is why you have a pilot. The pilot is to figure out what you can do and shape stuff as you go through, and allows you to have basically some rather than try to figure out everything the first time, see what happened. I think we dealt with in March. We had many inappropriate uses of scooters. We did some things to change what we were doing. Again, I would have liked to have stopped them at 10 o'clock. The council said midnight, but I think that we still managed to significantly change a lot of the challenges we were having. We've seen that. We did talk about it a little bit, as obviously we're still seeing issues with parking them. At that point, we talked about some things we were going to do, but we haven't been able to implement the parking corrals that we wanted to do because we weren't going to get the materials in until this week. So those are supposed to be going down. We're going to council. I would like to think we could give them another 2 months that would go through the summer here and see if people can comply. I know that Caitlin has been working with them to make that they've got to use it. If they don't, then they end up if they don't put them in the correct corral, they could get a fine and stuff. So I mean, we want them to start figuring out how to park in the corrals we're going to provide, and we hope we can cure the parking problem. I know that's been a big issue. There's still some minor issues. We have some people that use them incorrectly, but I would say we have people downtown who use cars incorrectly. We're not getting rid of cars or anything else. So I think one of the things we have to look at is how we do transportation and parking. And I think when people talk about the issue with the scooters, I continue to tell them, how are you going to handle parking? because we don't have enough land. We certainly don't have enough money to build enough parking decks for cars and what we have. But what we do have is the ability to park further out and scooter in. We have the ability for people who are tourists to come here and be able to use those, take the ferry in from the beach, never have to worry about bringing a car. That's one less car we got to park. It's one less car that we have to deal with in downtown on our streets and a variety of other things. So much of what I see is really the scooters allow us to address problems that I don't know how we'll address them as a city related to parking and some of the other things that we're dealing with that are challenges. So, but I do agree we have problems with the scooters, but we're trying to correct those. And I think whereas we've been able to go through and staff has been working it, we can correct it. The only other option for us is continue to try to figure out the challenges that we have related to parking and other stuff. And that's my hope. We've been able to put free spaces out in the periphery. If there's a way for people to travel back and forth into the core, that's great. But if you're going to park in the core, you're going to have to pay to park in the core. So we continue to work through these things, and we'll continue to see what we can do. Finally, John, I know you had called us last week about we did cancel the workshop that we were going to have at Tippin Park. We're going to come back and we're going to do that at some point. The challenge is the neighborhood meetings we have are really there for the neighborhood to tell us what they want. It's a community center. So there are some things that you generally think of as community centers, but the community center really needs to be designed and programmed to do what the community wants, not project what we want. We don't try to project. I certainly haven't come up here and said anything more than it's going to be a community center. Certainly there were some challenges in the neighborhood of things that was thought it was going to be, and we've had different things somewhat get out there. I tend to think it's important for us as the city to not project what we want, to allow to simply say we're looking for a community center, and then allow the people to come forward to us. So we will reschedule that. I'll certainly work with David. I know they talked with the architects, and there seemed to be some concern of certainly some projections of what some people were saying what it ought to be. Personally, I think the whole meeting you have there is to figure out what the community wants, and then the architect and our team sort of figure out how to program it and design it into what the community wants as far as it can generate. So I think that's where we are, and we'll reschedule that meeting for a proper time for us to do. Yes.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Why did you cancel it? I mean, what happened?
Because again, I thought that at the end of the day, and I've talked with David, and they talked with the architects, and there seemed to be some thought processes that there were things that gotten in the community that were projected into the community that were being said. They weren't coming from us. They certainly weren't coming from the architect. But I mean, we've had some people say what they thought it should be, and it's not really about what we think it should be. It's about what the community thinks it should be, and then we should build the community center from that, looking back through it. So we're going to reschedule the meeting. We thought it was there was a series of things going through that thought there was a use that we certainly weren't expecting to use it for. We didn't think any of our community centers are used for this use. Anywhere else, we don't do that. They've been talked about doing homeless feeding there. We don't do that at any of our community centers. We do have feeding for individuals who Meals on Wheels in a variety of age, and we do some things for youth programs. Certainly we did a lot of things during the pandemic, both for the young and for the old, but we've never used our community centers for that. I don't know what happened and why it became an issue, but certainly I don't think we should be projecting what our thoughts are of what the center is going to be. We should listen to the public. The public should tell us, and that's why you have the design process. That's why you have an architect professional. That's why we have a team, and we're going to circle back around and pick a date, and we want to come back to the community where we come in and we're like, hey, this is a blank slate. You're supposed to tell us what you want. I don't know how. We don't do homeless meal serving at anywhere. I don't know how that ended up being a situation where people thought that that's what we were going to do. So, with that, I'll open it up to your questions.
I guess to follow up on that question, with was a flyer sitting around that neighborhood. Do you know where that flyer came from?
I have no idea, but I think the flyer came from certainly an idea that they thought there had been stuff talked about, what was happening, or people would come here and said different things. We certainly haven't said it. I haven't said anything about what that center should be. That's why you have the process that goes through. That's why you go to the neighborhood. That's why you do those kind of things. So it's a blank slate. They should tell us what they want. And again, the fact that this happened showed that there's been something going on in that neighborhood. Somebody's been projecting something that certainly wasn't what we intended to do. And again, we're not intending to do anything. We want to know what you want. And so I think it really needs to come from the neighborhood. They need to tell us what they want.
Do you have an idea of when another hearing will be set?
We'll get together and try to get together with the team and try to figure out a time. And I mean, listen, we've done these things. There are a variety of different issues that I tried to give some flexibility, some things, and was not involved. I will be more directly involved to make sure that we don't have problems and issues like this come forward again. That was just an unfortunate situation. But again, when we have a whole process set up, the reason we do that is we don't project what we think the center should be. We're there to listen and then take your thoughts as a neighborhood. So somehow very much the neighborhood had gotten a feeling that projection had happened. It didn't come from the city administration, didn't come from city staff, didn't come from the architect.
Mayor, so the city put out an RFP, and it was reported in the News Journal, I guess, last year that the city had budgeted LOST money for the first stages of this.
Correct.
Is this LST money, is this a discretionary account that accrues to the council person?
No. This is money that gets appropriated by the council. So, I mean, just all of our things, these are monies that are appropriate. Now, the whole council took that appropriation. It is something we're looking at. It is something we want to evaluate. But the building itself, I think when we start talking about what it's going to be, I don't think the city should ever do that. I think that's why you do the process. You hire the architect, why you hire a professional to listen to what the neighborhood is telling you, and then you figure out how to incorporate that into building what the building is. Again, I certainly haven't been out there projecting, but we have had, somehow it got started, and that's why we had this problem. So again, our hope is to come back and come back and design it. We have an opportunity to be there. When we have a chance for staff to get in front of the people and to come forward and just say, listen, we don't have anything. You tell us what you want, and then we'll put it together. But I mean, I couldn't be there on Saturday. I had a number of things that were going on. I couldn't be there on Saturday to be there to tell people this meeting's for them and this is what's there. So when we set that up, we're going to have a meeting that I have a chance to be there with them and communicate to them. They're citizens who I represent all of the city and be able to tell them this is your project. You need to tell us. We don't need to tell you what it's going to be. And so I know there was some significant concern about that. And again, I don't know another place. We don't feed homeless at any of our community centers. So we do feed the Meals on Wheels that we do for the Council on Aging, for the aging. We do have programs that work for youth, but that's the only thing that we have. Jim?
I guess follow up on. So was the flyer the reason you canceled the meeting, or is it because misinformation goes around about projects all the time and you don't cancel public hearings on them? Why cancel this one? Was it because it was on a Saturday? And
Well, I don't like we don't have a Saturday meetings anywhere on those. I think there was some other involvement in scheduling that was not me. I was not directly involved. I'm going to be much more directly involved in this process to make sure that the neighborhood gets what they want and have the opportunity to explain that. So, Jim, I guess, at some point I have the ability to do that. And I didn't feel like this was correctly handled. And again, if I can't be there to explain to people what's going on and that we're not doing something, then that's our job to do. Yes.
Could you expound a little on the scooter issues? What kind of specific issues are
I
we
mean-
seeing, and what does the council want to do?
The council has a chance to decide a couple of things. I mean, we've already decided we're putting down the corrals. What the council is going to have to decide over the next couple of days, they're going to have to decide a couple of things. Councilwoman Myers has something out there that wants to end scooters immediately, so that's going to be out there. It's not something we've said, but we do know the issues are related to parking. I think we've got a plan that we wanted to implement, and it's starting this week with the corrals. I think we should work through the end of the summer, and then we can evaluate what we could do. One of the scooter agreements ends before we have another meeting in July, so they'll have to address what they want to do. If they want to extend that one to the August meeting, or whether they want to extend it to the July meeting, they'll have the ability to figure that out. But I think at this point, I'd like to see us at least try to solve the parking issue. We didn't get in, we didn't come into this to spend any money one way or another on it. We were trying to figure out what was there. We knew there was some positive that could be done. We knew there were negatives. We just didn't know what they would be. So we kind of implemented as we thought. And as we've gone through, we have seen, and the biggest complaint we have at this point is, the biggest complaint we did have was improper usage. We still have some of that, but it's not as rampant as it was when we made the changes in March. Now most of what we get is parking and things. And to that end, we did not set up corrals in the very beginning. Part of it is we wanted to see if this was something we wanted to do before we spent money, and we've worked our way through. So that's kind of where we are at this particular time.
So when you say a parking corral, is it going to be like a fenced-in area for
No,
parties?
it will be kind of a designated area. It will have hashings and different stuff on there. I think some sticker and tape related stuff that can stand traffic and those kind of things. So it'll be an area that will be hatched out that you will have to put the scooter back in that area and secure it back in a corral. That's also where you'll rent it from a corral and you'll put it back in a corral. So that's our goal, is to have a space where they could be rather than just, I think the complaint is a lot of them are just strewn all over, sometimes blocking sidewalks, a variety of things. We don't want to do that. Now there are ways that it can be on sidewalks in an area that doesn't block the sidewalk. I forget what was the technical term. It's not apron. It's some kind of thing which is part of the sidewalk that can be used for that doesn't block the general flow of traffic that could be there. So some of them are there. Some of them are like on Jefferson Street, where we have the bump out of the old Jefferson Street was taken away, and it's right there at Romana. And again, it's a hatched area right there. We've got one of those. So they've got about 15 sites or so across the downtown area that we want to do them. Now, again, as we get into further out places like Bayview Park, I see where they're parked, but we've had less problems with people saying the general problem with parking is generally in the downtown core. That's where we see, I'm not saying we haven't seen it in other places, but it seems to be less prevalent and less of a problem than in the downtown core area. So again, I think let us try these corrals. If it doesn't work with the corrals, then at some point, that's the whole reason you have a pilot, so you can say this just isn't working. But I think it's hard to judge whether the program works or not until we've figured that out. And we knew that's why you have a pilot. You know there are going to be problems. You got to address them. I would say let us put the corral system down. Let's figure out whether people actually use them. If they don't, then at that point you make a decision if you want to get out of it altogether. But I think to leave right now would be premature without having the chance to see what you could do with the corrals. Yes, Jim.
How I guess the item on the agenda for this week is extending it with Bird till July. How far do you want to extend it to test these corrals?
Well, that really becomes council's decision, Jim. We run through VO through August, so the council could decide that. The council could figure out whatever they want to do. What we did notice is there was no time, if we didn't do something in June, their contract would expire 2 days before the July meeting. So at a minimum case, the council needs to figure out what they want to do. And again, Councilman Myers is placed on there just getting rid of the whole thing together. So those will be things that the council has to evaluate.
Do you have, I guess, everything has cost and benefits. Do you have some data points?
The costs we were able to do were easily within the 25,000 we got from each company. So we were able to put those down within the cost. I think cost will be something that will ultimately come out and try to figure out once we can figure out whether we can deal with the parking and the other stuff. To me, whether or not what you do or what money you make should be irrelevant on what the behavior should be. I mean, again, we need to solve that, and then we can figure out a way to make that happen. And we'll do it within parking area or something else. But again, the pilot gives you the chance to see these things. And I think we have to solve all of the things through the process until we can get to that final part as to how we do that. I had my general meeting with Councilman Moore last week, and I said, we've solved some inappropriate nighttime usage. Now we're trying to address parking. Then I think you address some issues of if you can get through that, that's feasible. Then you get through issues where you can deal with fines and issuing how we issue citations if people use it inappropriately. And then I think you've sort of figured out if you can do all that and it works, then you figure out what happens, and you design your plans going forward, and you can see what you're going to do on a more permanent basis and make something that really makes the return for the citizens in the city. But it's hard to figure out what you're going to do when you don't know what resources they're using.
Yeah, and I guess it was a bad question on my part. The cost benefits I'm talking about that people have to deal with as far as sidewalks, the benefits the city gets out of having the transportation options. And do you have any data on that? Like how many people are using it?
Well, I mean, we certainly have that, but I don't know. It's hard to put a price tag on what it is, on what's the cost for people who don't use it in the correct way. I mean, it's hard to put a cost on that. So I think what we'd rather do is see if we can find a different way that doesn't create problems with the parking incorrectly and finds a way to get compliance with parking correctly. So I don't think there's a price tag on benefit one way or the other. I think the issue is either people will comply with something that's much more suitable and usable for everybody, or it's not compliant. If it's not compliant, then I understand why the council makes a decision if they make a decision. I think now is too early for us to make that decision. We haven't implemented the corral system. I think we need to look at that and at least get a couple of months to figure out what works. And then I think, Jim, after that, then I think you say, okay, they're using a public space. Okay, what does the return need to be for the city? And I think that's part of it. But I don't think you necessarily do that at this particular time when you don't know what it's even going to be. I mean, that's more when you decide on what your permanent license is going to be. And I don't think we're there. I think the pilot continues because we're still working through the bugs through the system. Yes.
Mayor, the city put out a press release last week that said that the city's housing department will stop accepting Section 8 housing choice programs early July.
Hold on, John. We simply reposted to make sure that, because we don't think that everybody gets what the federal system does. We don't do anything related to that. We're simply advertising what the federal deadlines are because we don't believe they reach out to you as well as we do. So all we did was repost it. We didn't make that decision. We're not accepting. It's not us who's accepting them. It's the deadline is set forward by housing, by HUD.
Well, the release says the City of Pensacola Housing Department will stop accepting applications.
We get the applications for HUD. HUD sets the program. We have to comply with their program.
Like in accordance with HUD guidelines.
Okay.
So does the city not maintain a wait list? Everything goes to HUD from here?
No, again, we work through this stuff here, but if you don't have your application in, you will not make it. So all we're trying to do is advertise what is the deadline set by HUD.
So there is a waiting list here in the city?
Yeah.
We have a waiting list about 2 years back.
I mean, yeah. I mean, those are the challenges. We got a lot of issues. Housing is a part of it, and we're working through that. John, I mean, again, all we're trying to publicize is make people aware of it. We're not going to be able to get everybody housing, and that's what we're trying to work through. That's why the housing department came in with different ideas. That's why we've said this is a critical priority that we think the council needs to step into, and housing probably should be one of the most critical things that we're thinking about right now as a council.
So the city plays no role in the application for Section 8 housing?
That's not what he's saying.
I mean, does the city maintain a list and then help people locate available housing?
Absolutely off that, but there is a deadline by which you have to get your application to even get on the waiting list or anything else. So every year we advertise for new people to put forward, and they have till a deadline that is HUD sets up for us.
How many people are on the waiting list?
That I don't know. We could get that figure. I don't have that readily
Has the waiting
available.
list gone up recently?
I'm sure we continue to see it going up. I know Marcy is been there. They continue to see there's housing shortages everywhere. So I imagine that number is going up.
Well, I would like to follow up with that.
Okay.
When the opportunity.
If you can get your questions, John, we definitely will get those to Marcy, and she should be able to answer those for you. But we're not saying, our only reason we're saying we have a deadline is the deadline was not set by us, it was set by HUD. And so all we're doing is communicating
Gotcha.
the HUD deadline.
Back to the scooters, when are the corrals going to be set up? Is that something that y'all got to?
I know it was something like June 15th, which is this week, is what I remember Caitlin telling me.
What was the question?
When are the corrals going in?
We received materials last week. Is it this week we're starting to install?
I mean, I know June 15th was the date I was given before, so it's this week. So
This week will be installed? Yes.
So James in Public Works back there is saying we're starting to install now.
Okay.
So hopefully this week we should have those in.
And as far as you know, does the app just track where the scooter is, and if they don't park there, they're buying through the app?
That's our understanding that we're working through with Caitlin. But yes, there was kind of the thought process was oh, well, we'll give you an incentive, and we were like, the whole system, if you can't get compliance, we're gonna, it's not gonna be a system we continue to do. So I think the system has now changed to they're gonna do it as a fine if you don't park in the correct spot.
Do you know how much that fine is?
I don't have that readily in front of me. We can have that, James. I would say we probably need to have that for tonight at the agenda review. So again, these are the things we've been trying to communicate and find a way to do it. But that's why you have a pilot. You know you're going to have things you haven't thought about. I think those you work your way through. I think it's a smart idea, and it doesn't expect that you solve everything immediately. You see problems, you try to figure out solutions. All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here.